Welcome to Stubs with Jason. Hey people, welcome to Stubs with Jason, where I discuss movies, music, TV, pretty much all kinds of things on all kinds of screens. Today I'm going to be talking about Deadpool and Wolverine. This is the third Deadpool movie, the first Disney / Marvel produced. It's also, technically, this would be the 34th entry in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. According to IGN, it's crushing at the box office. Deadpool and Wolverine continues to break records, becoming the 6th biggest domestic opening box office debut with $211 million and the largest rated R global opening ever with a staggering $438.3 million. Probably a record we will not see touched for a while. I mean, I could be wrong, but that's pretty nuts for a rated R movie. Now, obviously, it's not just a standard rated R movie. This has got the superstar power, and it's got two of the hottest superhero properties, to happen over the last 20 years. You know what I mean? So, I surprising, but not crazy surprising. Anyways, IMDb summary gave more than I knew away about this movie, so I checked out what Fandango said. Fandango summarizes this movie by saying, Marvel Studios' Deadpool and Wolverine delivers the ultimate team-up throwdown. I like how we've got one synopsis that's like, here's the movie, and then another one that's like, well, there's two people in it. So I probably could have looked more for a better middle ground. Anyway, so Deadpool and Wolverine stars Ryan Reynolds, Hugh Jackman, Emma Corrin, who I've never seen her in anything. She's pretty good in this movie, but she apparently plays Princess Di in a show called The Crown, which I've heard is really good. And then the other person you might have seen in the trailers is Matthew McFadyen. And he plays a character named Tom in the show Succession, which, if you haven't watched Succession, I gotta say, it is really darn good. All right, so Deadpool and Wolverine. The story's pretty straightforward. It stays mostly singularly focused, doesn't jump around between a whole cast and crew of characters or whatever. It mostly just focuses on Deadpool and Wolverine. It's Deadpool's movie. You can definitely tell that, but that's fine, right? Like, you put those names out there in the title. We're here to see this team, to see this pair in action. That made me I love that. Like, I know sometimes movies get away from their bread and butter, right? As far as what they're showing and the story they try and tell you. But, like, this one pretty much locks in and sticks with your characters. So, love that. There's not a lot I really want to talk about. I mean, there's a lot I'm going to talk about, but I'm keeping it light up front because I don't want to get into details. I want to, just going to do a little brief, quick, spoiler-free section here, and then I'm going to dive into things after that. That way people, if they want to just come and check out, where did I land? What did I get in the number? Stub or not stub, yada, yada, yada. And then if they want to hang around and listen to kind of my spoiler rants, they are welcome to do so. So, with it being a Deadpool movie, one of the things you want to look at is like, well, is this a funny movie? Because the other Deadpool movies have pretty much been comedy / action, whatever you want to call it. It is the ultimate Ryan Reynolds vehicle. And it continues to be the ultimate Ryan Reynolds vehicle. If Deadpool 1 and 2 weren't your thing, this movie is not going to do anything. It's not going to win you over just because Hugh Jackman's there. Hugh Jackman more or less, hops in the loony bin with him. I mean, he's not really like that, but he just, he swears that it's all over the top. And, if you were expecting an extreme shift in tone from this movie because of the addition of Hugh Jackman, you're going to be disappointed because, again, it definitely lands more in the Deadpool, Ryan Reynolds tone of things, which I think is great because I again, like I said, I enjoyed the other two. But yeah, humor, it's got a really great opening sequence as far as, there's a scene in a van it was my favorite scene in the movie. It's that was the part of the movie where, again, there was a lot that I enjoyed. They did a great job. All the elements that they brought in, from everything that you might expect to potentially be brought in, and then obviously things that even you didn't expect to be brought in. I think they did a pretty good job. The story itself, pretty basic, nothing too complex there as far as I felt. And, that might leave some people wishing and wanting a little more, I think it's got a little bit of heart. There's a couple of, there's a couple of times in this movie where I think Hugh Jackman does deliver solidly. Like, it's just like Hugh Jackman does a great job in this role, and he has, and this is, no different in anything like that. So, but yeah, I can see where, actually, I know, I went to see it twice this weekend, and, I had one half of the group absolutely loved it. They were over the top. They just, couldn't wait to talk about it, get into it, and watch it again. A lot of people I saw, it was their second time seeing it, even when I saw it my first time, But even with that, I had a couple of people who went with me throughout my times this weekend, and they were just like, it didn't do a whole lot for me, and it just didn't super land with them. I think they were maybe hoping for more. And again, I understand that as well, in the sense of, like, if you're going to say, well, we're bringing Deadpool into the MCU, like, well, then we're going to head in a different direction maybe here, right? And, maybe that's what some people were expecting. And I get that. But for me, I think it hit the marks that I was expecting it to. And I had a good time overall for the most part. So, humor, though, for me, kind of on brand and on par with the last two Deadpool movies. If you think those are funny and you had a good time with those, I think you're going to think this is funny and have a good time with this. In terms of the visual effects, I think they did a good job. Not a whole lot that, no, there are a lot of visual effects in this movie. I shouldn't talk or diminish, like, there's a lot going on visually in this movie. I think it all works. It's all fine. Nothing really jumped out that I felt was like, that's rough. No, they again, considering some of the other blunders that Marvel's had over the last 5 years with their visual effects, I think they took an appropriate amount of time. This thing looks pretty well polished, well made. Yeah, it's got a good look. It's all good. I think that part, all good. No super terrible Wolverine Origins claws coming back or anything like that. Speaking of visuals, I saw it on an ultra screen, and I saw it again. The second time I saw it in 3D. The 3D isn't bad. It's not great. Early in the movie, it's kind of there, and then as usual, it just kind of disappears and all that stuff. But it was fine. It wasn't a bad viewing option. The IMAX, the Atmos sound and all that, I would recommend it. I don't know if it's required, but I think you should, if you get a chance, go see it on a big screen. It is, yeah. There's a couple of sequences where that definitely, the extra little scale that ultra screen gives you is probably worthwhile. But if you're on a standard screen, you're going to enjoy it and have a good time, I would imagine, So, next up, I want to talk about the sound and the soundtrack. Audio, as far as the sound effects and everything, it was standard Marvel affair, standard superhero affair. Nothing jumps out as far as that goes. But, the soundtrack, I think they had a lot of fun with it. I definitely enjoyed the soundtrack that they had put together here. This is an example of a movie that just knew exactly what to drop, when to drop. Nothing feels forced. It all just kind of works. Yeah, there's a couple of things The music in that van sequence I was talking about really got me. Like I was had a good time with that. That was not what I was expecting. I had a good time with that. You know, how does this movie stack up against the other Deadpool movies? I would say it's pretty much on the same level of Deadpool 1. I could see where maybe that might flip-flop and change, you know, if I watch it a little more or anything like that. Deadpool 1, though, is really hard for me to, because, like, Deadpool 1 probably gets the edge because it's just, it's a good movie. Like, it's put together well, it's clever. The way that they, Quentin Tarantino, and kind of mess with how they're delivering the narrative and everything feels natural still, and it all works, you know. Deadpool 1 is probably the best of these three. How is it as far as being an MCU entry? I would say it's not like at the top of the MCU mountain, just because, I mean, let's face it, guys, the MCU it's had some incredible entries, and, you know, this is a good movie. This is a really good, and again, I would consider this a good MCU entry. It's even a good entry if you want to throw it up against the Fox-produced movies. Honestly, and as I'm thinking about that more and more, I think this still kind of feels more like a Fox movie than it does an MCU movie. Like, there's definitely Marvel elements that are involved now, but it still feels like something that the Fox team put out, to be honest with you. And I think really what that comes down to is, like, it feels mostly on brand with the Deadpool movies that have come before this, which is good. Like, keep the tone consistent. Run with that. It's worked well, and I think they do a good job of that here. Yeah, so like moreover, it feels like a Deadpool movie, and when I hold it up against the other two, I definitely think that this is like a solid capper to the Deadpool trilogy. Well, I've heard people, you know, and they break down, even within the MCU, they kind of look at like individual the solo movies, and they kind of break them and rate them down, like Iron Man 1 through 3, Cap, Winter Soldier, and Civil War, then the Thor movies. And I'd say if you want to look at how Deadpool would stack up and how does all that stack up, I think Cap definitely still has the best trilogy. I know that's not really fair because, you know, it's practically, you know, Civil War is practically an Avengers movie, you know. But still, if you're looking at movies that have Captain America at the front of it, that counts, and you got to count that. So Cap's got the best trilogy of movies, but after that, I could say it probably does come down to Deadpool or Thor. I know it's easy to want to toss Thor, and just say, no, what are we even having this conversation about? Because Thor was really rough. It's like reverse Star Trek, right? Like, the odd Thor movies are really good, then the even ones are really rough. Thor 1 and 3, you know, Thor and Thor Ragnarok to me are so good, though. Like, they are great. And I think they might prop that up. Where, again, Deadpool 2 isn't, like, bad. It's definitely the worst of the three, though. But I don't know. I think when you put all of that together, Deadpool 1 would go up against Thor Ragnarok, and that's a really tough choice if I'm sitting on a Saturday and I have to pick one of those two. You're winning either way in my book. Anyway, so like you got the Cap series, that's the best. Thor and Deadpool are like interchangeably at 2 and 3. And who else has a trilogy of their own movies? Wolverine. Well, you know what? Iron Man. I put the Iron Man trilogy after Deadpool and Thor. Then you put Iron Man. Wolverine, I guess, would go after that with, you know, obviously Wolverine Origins. Then you've got The Wolverine, and then Logan, which Logan is so great, and it really, you know, props the rest of it doesn't prop the rest of them up, but it's just great. Then you got, you know, like Blade, I guess. Blade's a Marvel character who had a trilogy of movies. You know, but I think Blade 1 is solid, and then the other two just don't do a whole lot for me. I haven't watched them in a long time, but Blade 3 I saw once, and I just remember walking out at the end of it like, oh, that was not very good. And then if you go and look, if you want to hear funny stories about a movie that had production nightmares, go look into Blade 3. Like, Wesley Snipes was apparently just a monster to deal with on set. And yeah, there's a lot there. You should go read into that or go watch a YouTube video about the behind the scenes of Blade 3. There's a lot going on there. You know, and that's pretty much, I guess I'm only talking about Marvel individuals that have 3 solo movies where the main characters are portrayed by the same actor. That's just kind of like the entry bar as far as that goes, right? Like, you gotta it's easy to have a sequel, like to have one in your first entry and then give it a sequel, right? Like, but do those two do well enough to grant the third? That's, something. So, not talking Nick Cage and those terrible Ghost Rider movies or whoever else I missed. Just not happening. Okay, sorry, that was a rant, but I like, there you go. That's where I, stack as far as those individual movies and all of that goes. So, to round this out as far as how I felt about Deadpool and Wolverine, I had a good time. I laughed. I thought the fights were good. Thought the comedy was good. The story isn't anything super crazy. I will say that I feel like where I've talked about other movies this summer and I've been like, oh, well, I can kind of spoil I can talk to you about everything that happens here, and it won't change this movie. Like, it won't change how you feel about this movie, because you're gonna go watch it and it's just gonna be what it is, and you either enjoy it or you don't. I feel like this movie definitely hinges a lot on you going in as blind as possible, because there's so many fun surprises there, and if those fun surprises aren't there, it's not that the rest of it is bad. I think they definitely prop this movie up to a higher level, though. Like, when I saw it the first time, I was in a full theater. Everybody was having a great time. Everybody, like when they started pulling out the big guns, more or less, it was electric and everybody was having a good time. And when I saw it the next time, it was in the middle of the afternoon, and I did have a good time the second time around. But like when I saw it, it was a much smaller crowd, and there just wasn't as much laughing. Found myself laughing alone. Nobody likes to be that guy in the movie, but I was definitely that guy in the movie a couple of times. So, as I've gotten older, I just enjoy comedy more. I enjoy laughing, and this movie definitely gave me reasons to laugh. So, with all that in mind, I can see where people are walking out this weekend and being like, oh man, what a great movie. That movie was incredible. But I feel like it's going to kind of fall victim to Spider-Man No Way Home syndrome, which is like when you see those reveals, like when you were in that crowd and you saw the 3 Spider-Men together, Andrew Garfield comes out of that sling ring or whatever, that's the Doctor Strange portal thing or whatever you want to call it, The place lost its mind, right? We wanted that, right? There are similar things in this movie, and I'm not going to go into any kind of details in this section, obviously, that boost this movie up. And if that doesn't do a lot for you, then this movie might just come in as okay for you, or even bad. You may not even really enjoy it at all. Well, I don't know. I hope you enjoy it a little bit, but, it just may not do anything for you, right? Let's get to, brass tacks, to stub or not to stub for me. For me, to stub. I love laughing. I've enjoyed these movies. They are what they are. All of the secrets, all the stuff that they've been, keeping under wraps, I'm cool with. I enjoyed, you know what I mean? Like, I kind of get it for what it is, and I understand as far as the long-term enjoyment that you get out of a movie like this. Again, those scenes will diminish a bit over time, but I think that I still enjoyed it enough that I'd say, yeah, definitely stub. If anything, if you're gonna see it soon before all that stuff gets ruined, because once it's ruined, again, then it's just okay. You know what I mean? It does have a great finale sequence, though, and this was a movie that is like, it kind of, I don't want to say, I mean, it doesn't get boring in the middle, but you kind of get going through that. Well, then you go through a sequence, and as you finish this sequence, this action sequence, it's like I don't think this is the end of the movie, but I have no idea what we're going to be doing to finish this movie. Like, what's the main third act event that's going to happen? And when it comes through, it's like, okay, and it works, and it's fun, and, you know, and I Stub, go see it. Go see it. Number rating, 7.6. Yeah, it's a good time. But you know, Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds are great. Everybody who's in it, great. You know, hopefully you were able to stay away from everything. I was very I felt very like I knew so little going in. So when all of the fun reveals started coming, I really caught off guard, and I expected them, but like not the specifics that they did. So hopefully you don't have those things ruined for you. If you are trying to wait, may the force be with you. The internet just has a way of ruining and revealing these things to you as much as you try and avoid them. It's just how it happens. You know, people just can't help themselves. So that's it for my spoiler-free ramble here, though. And let's talk a little spoilers. All right, so this movie starts off with Deadpool addressing us and saying, like, well, how are we gonna make this movie without, you know, disrespecting the greatness of what Logan was, the movie Logan? And he's just like, we're not. And it goes into this crazy sequence, and he's digging up Wolverine's skeleton, and the TVA shows up. He fights the TVA using the skeleton of Wolverine, and it's set to Bye 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 by NSYNC. And I'm going to tell you, I was cracking up, and it's one of the best sequences of the movie, and I was dying. And again, this is immediately one of those things, right, where it's just like, this either lands and it works for you. You know, growing up for me, NSYNC being huge when I was a teenager and all that stuff, I mean, obviously not my thing, but yeah, I've heard that song a billion times, just like so many people. I was cracking up. It was good. You know, then you move in, you get a little further into the story. You find out Wade is, applying for the Avengers. Great Jon Favreau cameo there. Great. All the little knickknacks in the office, the Infinity Band, the different Tony Stark helmet caps, Iron Man 2 capsule, there was so much. Again, there's so many Easter eggs that they've kind of, dripped and dropped everywhere. Just having this interaction between Ryan Reynolds and Jon Favreau, with the, of course, meta level, the self-referential awareness, I knew I was on board with what was going on pretty quickly. And with that in mind, though, they don't spend a ton of time in this movie with the MCU elements. There's like an MCU frame that's kind of like, it's more of an MCU setting without a ton of the MCU players. It's definitely populated more with Fox assets. So Deadpool goes on this journey, and he's like, he gets told how there's the timelines that are out there, and each timeline now has an anchor being, which is a new element that they've introduced, which I don't mind, which essentially says, like, when this anchor being is taken away, the timeline dies. Well, Wade's anchor being was Logan, so his timeline is starting to come to an end. This rogue TVA guy is he doesn't want to spend the time to sit and watch these timelines die, so he offers Deadpool an opportunity to get out, not on his orders, but because of the higher ups, they say, to give him a chance to join the sacred timeline. But he doesn't want to do that because he wants to save the people in his timeline, wants to save his friends and family that mean so much to him. So Wade decides, all right, well, okay, how about if I replace this Wolverine? What if I just go find us another Wolverine and we can do this, right? So he sets off on a multiverse quick montage journey to find a replacement Logan for his timeline. And there's some pretty funny stuff there. Squatted down official height Wolverine. Which just looks like a guy who's been resized. I was cracking up. That was great. You see Orange and Brown Wolverine fighting Mark Ruffalo's Hulk for like the briefest flash. And again, like, I think the downside of that is like, it's just like, well, come on, if you're going to give this to me, then give this to me, right? Like, give me 5 to 10 seconds of it. Don't just give me that. But they wanted to keep it breezy, and I get it, and it's fine. And honestly, the reality of it is like, well, they want to save that, right? Like, they're going to have Hulk and Wolverine fight at some point in time, most likely. Why blow that in a throwaway 5-second sequence, right? So I'm looking forward to when they do that properly and for real. As we go through this, we get our first official, like, main cameo, though. And it is, you see a Wolverine, he's working on a motorcycle, and Deadpool's like, yeah, this is the total package. This is what I've been looking for. This guy looks great. And he walks up to him, and he turns around, and it's Henry Cavill. And he does great. It's just a really short bit, but he is awesome in it. And I was like, yeah, I could see this. It's too bad we're wrapping all this up because, or he's a little old, and I'm hoping that they all reboot and go younger at some point in time. But Henry Cavill pulls it off in his little scene there, and I thought it was really great. And there's a great little dig on DC there. It's incredible. It's awesome. So, eventually, he keeps making his way through. You see you see a proper old man Logan. You see Patch. You see Age of Apocalypse. There's like there's an X-Men cover that you see where he's like up on an X on top of a field of skulls, just really good, man. He eventually finds his Logan, which he is then told, A, terrible idea. B, he's told he has the worst Wolverine. He has the worst Logan out of all the multiverses. Which, and then they get evaporated, they get tased or whatever. I can't remember what they say there. They get hit with the sticks from the Loki TV show. And that's it. They're sent to a void. And this void is pretty much, as you guys know, it's the Marvel wasteland. We're quickly introduced to Chris Evans. You think Cap? Deadpool's like, yeah, Captain America, Cap, this is great. And then they pull the quick one on you. It's not Captain America. He shouts flame on, and he is reprising his role as the Human Torch. Pretty good. That one I gotta say, they got me on that one, and that was pretty awesome. That was I was cracking up. They get taken to one of the bad guys of the movie. She's like the overseer of this void that everything gets sent to by the TVA. And her character's name is Cassandra Nova, which is Professor X's twin sister. She's like an evil Professor X. That's what she is. It's played by that lady who I said did Princess Di. She's great. I mean, for what she is, she's perfect. Like, she nails this role. You know what I mean? You see your first batch of, like, Fox Studio characters, though, in her fortress, which is Giant Man's remains, essentially. You see, like, Azazel from X-Men First Class. Ray Park is back as Toad. My cousin told me that the guy with the white and red shirt, he's meant to be the Russian from Punisher, which in one of them was portrayed by Kevin Nash. Wolverine and Deadpool eventually escape this lair. They end up on an encounter. That's where they meet Dogpool. If you haven't seen Dogpool in the trailer, Dogpool is pretty great. And then they meet Nice Pool, who is Ryan Reynolds, just airbrushed and smiling and just at, perfect zen and at peace, and it's just a delight, and it's just like, who the heck is this guy? That's pretty good, you know what I mean? He gives him this Honda van, and this is the van. So when they're out there, and they have a brawl, Logan and Deadpool have a brawl in this van, and there's a couple when Logan smashes Deadpool's head into the radio, you hear a couple of Greatest Showman songs, which that really landed for me, having a daughter who I listened to that soundtrack just a ridiculous amount of times. So that was pretty hilarious. But they really throw down. They really have it out in this van. Wolverine and Deadpool do. I mean, they kind of brawled for a few minutes earlier in the movie, but like they really go at it. Like limbs get broken. They are cutting each. It is super hardcore. Logan like insults Deadpool enough finally where Deadpool's like, we're gonna fight now, and it's great. I loved it, and it's all set to "You're the One That I Want" off the Grease soundtrack, which hilariously Australian, right? Like made me think of Olivia Newton-John. I was like, I wonder if Hugh Jackman is the one who came with this. Anyway, I love that brawl in the van. It's over the top, but it's just kind of tight, and I'm curious, like, did they do this fight? Did they use stunt people? It's all tight, like it's in a van, and you see their faces most of the time. So if they choreographed this fight and the two of them did it, I think they did a really good job of this fight. However they carried it, however they executed this fight, it was fun, and I had a blast with it. And you're kind of starting to turn at the end of this. You kind of see them. I loved seeing Wolverine and Deadpool. They're passed out in the van, and Deadpool's all wrapped up in the seatbelts, which tells you, in my mind, like, well, Logan won this fight. But that's still very funny, you know what I mean? So we're off to our next little set piece. And this is where there's just this one scene, as you guys know. This is like, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes of just like, well, here it is. This is the box of secrets we've been hiding from you people this whole time. So the people who come into the room are Jennifer Gardner's Elektra, Wesley Snipes' Blade, and Channing Tatum's Gambit. And I think I never thought I'd ever see, but sure enough, we get to see it, and it's fantastic. And the way they play it, the way he's, again, very aware that he's a character that's from a movie that never happened, from a universe that never got to start. Just fantastic. And the gags and the lines and the writing, pretty on brand, pretty on point there. And then eventually X-23 comes in, Daphne, whatever her name is, the girl, Laura from Logan. And that's great, and it's cool, and it's a great little sequence, and everybody has their... Not what I expect. Again, I figured there'd be some crossover stuff, but just not this, just not those characters. So I was really glad that I got to go in and have that surprise. I was both impressed, surprised, and delighted all at once in that moment. So they decide they're going to make another run at the bad guy's fortress. Cassandra Cain, they assume she's the gateway in and out of this place they're stuck at. And they're trying to get back to Wade's, reality so they can have a Deadpool, or so they can have a replacement Logan there so they can save that timeline and save everyone. Which offers redemption to Logan, as you guys, the worst Logan, because as you see in the movie, everybody's gone from his universe. He failed everybody because he's, pretty much an alcoholic. Which I gotta say, I was kind of surprised. I definitely thought they might go proper Old Man Logan comic book route and have Mysterio trick Wolverine into thinking that all of the X-Men were enemies and that they were going to have Wolverine kill all of them. But that was not the case. It was just his negligence while he was out, which I guess makes sense because this Wolverine is pretty dark and dour. And if he had been tricked, there's a little bit of like, hey, you can't beat yourself up, man. Like, you know. But having him like, no, he is accountable, kind of sets up more for the end of the movie. Anyways, they have a brawl with those The oddball, the Island of Misfit Toy heroes that I mentioned earlier, the Elektra and Blade and all that stuff, and Gambit. It's cool to see them all in action. They did a great job giving them great little action beats there as they get into this brawl. I really enjoyed that. Really thought that was fun. Gambit has good stuff. Gambit's card stuff and everything. I was like, yeah, okay. I never really thought about how that would have to work in a movie, but I was cool. I was like, yeah, okay, that's cool. That works. Blade doesn't have a sword, which I thought was kind of weird, but not the end of the world. But I don't know. It's like, I don't know. Why does a Blade have a sword? Kind of seems like he should have a sword. You get to see Wolverine's kind of whole situation get played out. Then long story short, then they get out of there. Which, I mean, again, you see that jumping shot in the trailer, but, you don't have full context to it. So now we're back in Wade's universe. And we're gearing up for what is going to be the final sequence. There's some subplots that go on that kind of like give a little more explanation as to the villain's actions here, but I am not talking about that, guys. It involved Pyro from X-Men 2 and 3. Well, actually, it's not from 2 and 3, just the kid from X-Men 3. Oh, wait, no. He is in 2 and 3. There was a Pyro in the first one, I think. Anyway, I'm not getting into that. All right, so yeah, you get down and you're in your final sequence here. Cassandra, Professor X's sister, shows up. Which, by the way, the Logan talking to Cassandra about how Professor X would have tore a hole through the galaxy or whatever to find her if he knew where she was so he could save her. I think that's wonderful, and it's true. But, I mean, again, I don't know if you guys have noticed, like, Professor X, kind of not that great of a guy, too. Like, he is wonderful, but he's not perfect. Like, part of me thinks, no, he may not have trusted her well enough to bring her out of there. He might have been like, she's better where she's at. We don't need a potential villain like this out and about in the world. Like, he definitely operates on, if he thinks it's for the greater good, he is almost willing to sacrifice anything for the greater good. Anyways, sorry for that rant. I'm just saying, a lot of y'all think Professor X is great, and he is great, but he's also kind of the worst at the same time. Go read a couple comics, if you haven't. Anyway, Cassandra shows up. She's going to start ripping out all the timelines. This is the one point in the movie I was like, they kind of threaten the idea of like ripping down all of the other timelines and all the other universes and just going the multiverse and just going down to one timeline. And daggone, I kind of wanted this to happen, but I'm going to tell you now, as you know, doesn't happen. So that's a little disappointing. I thought they were going to really whittle this thing down, but not the case. As immediately evidenced by this weekend's announcement with Robert Downey Jr. playing Doctor Doom in these upcoming movies. So, yeah, however that's going to work. Anyway, the final sequence, the final action sequence in this movie, this is kind of two-parter. And one of it is like Wolverine and Deadpool have to make their way down to this machine to stop Cassandra to save the multiverses. Stop me if you've heard that one before in these post-Endgame era. Essentially, an army of Deadpools, the Deadpool variants, come out, and Wolverine and Deadpool just have to fight through them all. And it's set to Madonna's Just Like a Prayer. And I gotta say, it's a fun sequence. It's a great oneer. It's awesome. It's cool. It's fun. It is really fun, and I really enjoyed that sequence. It's the only time in the movie Wolverine goes full Wolverine in the sense of like he flips the mask up on his yellow costume, and you get to see him in his proper full glory. And yeah, man, that it is great, and it's awesome, and it's like, okay, that's cool. Can't wait to see you guys do this properly for the whole time next time. But this was cool, and I'm really happy for Hugh Jackman to get to have that opportunity to do that. So they make their way through this, and there's more voice cameos, in the Deadpool variants. His wife, his woman, whoever, Lady Deadpool, she does the voice for Lady Deadpool. Other voices do it. Nathan Fillion and the guy who does the Wrexham show with him is one of the other voices. I'm sure there's more too. So they get through all that. And of course, they like for a moment they think, yes, we did it, that we won, and then of course all the dead they all come back to life, right? They all regenerate. So they get bailed out of that by Peter, who I haven't really talked about any of the original Deadpool 2 supplemental characters, but a lot of them are there, and it's great. His little friends and family group, So I thought that was I chuckled. That was funny. That's a great way to get them out of that. So now they go down. They got to try and stop this machine. They get told, well, you go and you create a link between these two energy sources that are powering this machine. It'll cause a short circuit, override, yada, yada, yada. It'll die. She'll die. They're told they'll die. Everything will be saved. So they go down there. Well, Deadpool goes down, the Wolverine, Deadpool, they kind of go back and forth, and it's good. They have a nice little back and forth. Long story short, they both end up in this machine. They think they're sacrificing themselves, and they do it. It's all said again to Like a Prayer by Madonna. It's very epic, it's very big, and it's wonderful. And it leads to a line a couple minutes later where, a guy was like, how did you survive? And they were like, look, you sent a Wolverine and a Deadpool down there, blast them to Madonna. Like, we're invincible. There's no way you could ever kill, it's pretty good. I enjoyed it. So, all the bad guys are handled. They're kind of wrapping up. Proper TVA shows up, kind of says, oh, look, you did. You saved this timeline. Good for you. They come back to a recurring gag, which is at one point Logan or Deadpool's like, they make a joke essentially where Deadpool is like, tells Logan / Hugh Jackman, like, you're going to be doing this till you're 90. Like, there's no escape of this for you, which is pretty good. They make that joke again. They end up going to get shawarma, a nod to Avengers 1. That's fine. Then the movie more or less ends with Logan, or with Deadpool inviting Logan into being in his circle of friends. And then you see X-23 show up in there, and you kind of get the vibe that, he and her now are bonding and spending life together, which is great. And it's awesome, in the sense of, if you really look at that, like, you have your cake and eat it too. You see Wolverine sacrifice himself to save her and Logan. Then you get to see this ending here where, like, they get to have a life together and spend, and have that family that he never really got to, the X-Men were his family. But then at the end of Logan, you see, like, see somebody who really, you feel true love that's not a romantic love, a family love, which is great. And, everything works out for Wade, and yeah, it wraps up. And it's really great. And I think that's awesome. Again, like, all of the stuff, I don't have a lot of bad to say. I don't really have a lot of bad to say. Like, why did I rate it where I rated it? It's just kind of how it felt. There's a part of me that's like, this is a 10. This is perfect. I just feel like it's not going to hold up over repeat viewings. You know what I mean? Like, I kind of know that. It already kind of, hit differently just in that second viewing. Anyway. So, credits start rolling. I tell you what I really loved, and what really got me, like, I got really emotional watching it. I got really emotional listening to Good Riddance, Time of Your Life by Green Day playing over the Fox era behind the scenes montage. Like, it just hit me. I don't know what it was. I was like, this is just as good. Like, I had, I found myself being surprisingly nostalgic, and I know I just did a big X-Men rewatch leading up into this over a couple of weeks. Me and the son went through them, and we had a great time watching them. We really did, and there is some good stuff there. I have a viewing order. If you're open to recommendation, start with First Class, then watch X-Men, then X2 United, then X-Men 3 Last Stand, then The Wolverine, followed by Days of Future Past, then Logan. You can stop there if you really wanted to. But then we watched X-Men Wolverine Origins, which my son was like, this is not as bad as I thought it was going to be, but it was the worst one that he had watched out of all of them, right? And then if you're really dedicated, you could do Apocalypse and then Dark Phoenix, but we didn't do Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix at all. Yeah, but that montage really got to me. Credits rolled. There is a post-credit scene. Yeah, it's Chris Evans just unloading as Johnny Storm on this about this this villain down in this void that he's been where he's been living, and yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, again, I hate that this is kind of how they have to lure these prime actors like Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. back. Like, they have to say, look, we'll let you be completely different. But hopefully he got it all out of his system, because, wow. Yeah, it's hilariously awful and inappropriate. But, again, it's fine. You know what I mean? Like, totally on brand with Deadpool. Totally on brand with Deadpool. That's where I got all that. And again, like I said, just a couple of other things, from the weekend. Got to see the Fantastic Four proof of concept trailer. Looks really cool. I'm really happy with what I saw. Like, I'm genuinely excited for that, where I probably wasn't before. Watched all of the Comic-Con panel, all of Marvel's Comic-Con Hall H presentation, and it was pretty good. All the cast and everybody showed up, made appearances, and all that jazz. It's cool to have the vibe back, to have a little bit of the excitement. They only, did 3 movies. They did, next Captain America, which comes out in February, Brave New World. Then they talked about the Thunderbolts. Sorry, which, looking forward to that. Why not? And then, like I said, Fantastic Four. So, we'll see. I hope Marvel rebounds. And then obviously they talked about the next 2 Avengers movies where they changed the title. They got the next Avengers going to be Marvel Doomsday. And then you've got Marvel Secret Wars coming back. The Russo brothers are coming back to direct those. Like I mentioned earlier, Robert Downey Jr. is coming back for being Doctor Doom. Not super crazy about this Doctor Doom thing, but, the Russo brothers, Feige, and, that they made magic before. Like, the run of movies those guys all come together and made and put out are magic and special. Like, they're going to stand the test of time. So, like, I hope they can kind of get us back there. Deadpool and Wolverine is not the MCU Jesus that it kind of pokes itself fun at and kind of says it is. I mean, it's funny and it's fun and it's a great time, but like I said, it feels more like a Fox movie than it feels like a Marvel movie. But again, it's a fun entry. I don't mean to take away from that, and right now I'm looking forward to Captain America and Fantastic Four. And Thunderbolts, sure, I hope it's fun, you know what I mean? But those other 2, I'm like, we might start turning the corner and getting back to where I can get pumped about these movies, and that's kind of what I'm hoping. So, all right, well, that was I just kind of talked through the movie, and I just kind of highlighted. I was just trying to walk through everything and some of the things I liked, and again, it was mostly the things that I liked. Yeah, at one point, when I first walked out, I was a little. I thought that there would be Hugh Jackman getting reunited with his X-Men in this movie. And then I realized, and I was like, oh, I kind of wish that would have Wade show up with them, but they didn't do that. But you know what? Then I got thinking about it, and it's like, they have a really nice send-off at the end of Days of Future Past. So I'm glad they left that alone as I thought about that more. Like, they have a great send-off. That's a great ending for that era, that cast, you know what I mean? And that's what this movie essentially is truly doing. It is bookending 25 years of Fox Marvel movies, and I think it does a great job of that. All right, guys. Well, that's all I got. What did you think? Let me know in the comments below. As always, like and subscribe, follow, add me to your library and Spotify, whatever you need to do. Go and find me on the socials by searching Stubbs with Jason. Feel free to hit me up in the comments or messenger or at stubbswithjason@gmail.com with more recommendations for things to review, movies, album, concerts, show. Again, it's always welcome. Love hearing from you guys. Actually, I heard from somebody last week, and it was about my rant, my Twisters rant. You know, I did this rant where I talked about on the last Stubs about Twisters, like it was a film adaptation to a board game. And I was thinking, like, well, it's all fun and games. And then I got thinking, like, well, you know what's sad? Like, this is probably going to happen. Like, eventually. Just like people are turning Winnie the Pooh into a horror series, you better believe we're going to get a series of horror movies based off children's board games at some point in time. I can already see Twister will be some sort of torture ripoff of Saw, and Chutes and Ladders will be like in the style of Final Destination. I think about Ghostface showing up. Let's play a game, and the shot pulls out, and he's just carrying a stack of kids' games there. So mark my words, in a decade or so, that's gonna happen. All right. Way too much. Gone way too long here. Way too long. But that's it, guys. I hope you guys have a wonderful one, and I'll catch up with you later. Hope you enjoyed my thoughts on Deadpool and Wolverine.
Stubs. Stubs all done.